So without further ado, Max Keiser, Stacey Herbert, welcome to Bitcoin Miami 2023. Welcome to the main stage. Welcome home. Well done, Max. Okay, have you just hyper-Bitcoinized the room?
Get it on! Bitcoin is here to stay. Bitcoin is revolutionizing the way we are and work and play.
Fantastic. Okay, so what is hyper-Bitcoinization? Is it in the room with us now?
I think you mean to ask what is super hyper-Bitcoinization.
Supercalifragilistic hyper-Bitcoinization.
Well, super hyper-Bitcoinization is available only once. There's only one Bitcoin, there's only one Bukele, there's only one El Salvador, the savior, the Ark, the Bitcoin Citadel. There is only going to be one of them because nobody else in the past 500 years has been a leader like President Bukele, and there won't be another one for another 500 years. So you have one first mover advantage, and El Salvador has it. The best and the brightest are moving to El Salvador. They're coming to be part of President Bukele's economic liberty and El Salvador. So that's, Jack Mallers is coming to El Salvador. Fold is coming to El Salvador. What's left for the other countries that follow? Not much. All the best and brightest are with us.
So, I guess that El Salvador is like the geographic location of hyper-Bitcoinization right now.
Super hyper-Bitcoinization.
I need to get this right. Super hyper-Bitcoinization. Is this a term that you guys have coined?
No, but I think we're going to adopt it now. Because everybody else is like saying they're hyper-Bitcoinized. And it's like, well, we need a separate category for the most popular, coolest leader on earth, right? And we're super hyper-Bitcoinization.
Got it.
Yeah, super hyper-Bitcoinization. I think it also relates to super hyperinflation. Because as these fiat money currencies around the world collapse in real time, and as these central banks are now exposed as having nothing on their balance sheet but hamster poop, people are realizing that super hyper-Bitcoinization is the way to fight super high hyperinflation. So we're at the end game of the 300-year experiment of central banks.
We are.
Definitely.
And you've been predicting this for quite some time now.
Right, I've been predicting it for a number of years. Our show, for many years, talking about it, the inherent fraudulent models that run these big banks is come under the weight of its own fraud, and they're all collapsing. And Bitcoin was really invented as a central bank killer. Mm-hmm. So now it's Bitcoin's time. Okay.
I mean, there's a rough sort of definition or a rough consensus about the idea of just the hyper-Bitcoinization before we come to the super hyper-Bitcoinization, which is to use Bitcoin on a daily basis. And I thought I'd ask the audience, could I see a show of hands, who of you uses Bitcoin on a daily basis right now? Okay, a few hands have gone up. This is good. I mean, who of you has lost all your Bitcoin in that boating accident? I'm just looking out for you. Good. Okay, we're all okay. But people aren't necessarily using Bitcoin on a daily basis, and this is obviously a room full of Bitcoin advocates, Bitcoin believers, and Bitcoin curious. So how do we get there?
I don't think that matters. We've been in Bitcoin since 2011, and people are always trying to get every single coffee and pay for it in Bitcoin, but you just have to be Bitcoin. And El Salvador is Bitcoin, President Bukele is Bitcoin, all the builders of Bitcoin are in El Salvador. So we are Bitcoin. It's just you have to be Bitcoin. You don't need to this notion that you have to convert every single pupusa seller. When I think of what El Salvador is, I think of it as Renaissance 2.0, like Florence was. Florence didn't just emerge out of nowhere. It had the most perfect money available at the time, which was the florin, and then it had a great leader of Lorenzo the Magnificent. So you had these perfect money, perfect leader, and a renaissance emerged out of that. It wasn't because every single, pizzeria was accepting the florin. Yeah. It was because they had the perfect money, and it was global. It was global trade. Merchants in North Africa wanted to trade with merchants or, import-export guys from Florence because they had the best money, so everybody wanted that. So it's a sort of black hole sucking in all of the best and the brightest from around the world, and that's what Bitcoin is.
I think,
right, plus it's an evolutionary step, right? So those who are not getting into Bitcoin now, it's because their DNA was not meant to survive into the next 2 or 3 generations, right? So, we're building the Ark in El Salvador. We welcome everyone to come to the Ark and save the savior that is El Salvador. And if you prefer to go down with the ship, fuck you.
Very good. I wonder if I should have rephrased that question for the audience rather than saying, who's using it on a daily basis? Who in this room is saving or investing in Bitcoin? Okay, that's better.
Because holding is using. That is,
of course.
It's the same thing. This notion that you're somehow greedy if you hold is stupid. I would use a different word, but I'm on stage and I realize I'm being recorded, and maybe I can't use words that might get me in trouble.
Do you want Max to say it
We don't want to go viral for the wrong reasons.
You want Max to say it instead?
Yeah, Max can say it.
Okay.
I'm the stunt profanity.
Very good. Okay. Well, as we've demonstrated, there's clearly a lot of people on board in this room, but there's still some challenges in getting to this Renaissance 2.0. There's still an awareness issue. There's still an education issue. What can people do in this room? What can they take away from them off the back of these 3 days of, intense Bitcoin education to get on this path to super Hyperbitcoinization?
Well, there's so many different layers. There's the individual, there's the corporation, and there's the nation state. And there's Bitcoin at the basis. There's only one Bitcoin, and there won't be only one nation state, I believe, because no other country is going to have a leader like President Bukele, and I don't think you're going to see the same sort of situation. But on the individual level, it's, getting wrecked is a good way to learn. It's happened to many of us. Corporations, I think, you have shareholders and stuff like that, and maybe it's not as, you have to be a bit more responsible about getting wrecked and you can't be a degenerate corporation and last very long. The same especially with a nation state. President Bukele always says that where El Salvador is going is to the place we want to be, and we is very important because if you have a bunch of shitcoiners there, where do they want to be but wrecked, right?
Yep.
So you don't want a wrecked nation because it's not a good place to be. El Salvador already had a wrecked nation for 200 years. Yep. Now they have the place everybody wants to be because it is the savior, it is the Ark, it is the Bitcoin citadel.
Well, that's actually a really good point. It leads on to the question I wanted to ask you today, which is, can we have a world or can the world be super hyper-Bitcoinized if there is, trigger warning everyone, crypto? Can we have Bitcoin and crypto in this hyper?
No, because crypto is just reinventing fiat money, and that's that term. The shitcoins, and the CBDC is a shitcoin. They're reinventing fiat money. Mm-hmm. All derivatives based on shitcoinery are just fiat money, centralized, and not worthy to have a discussion point. But in terms of adoption around the world, there's a scale of urgency. And countries like Lebanon, obviously, with the central bank collapse, there's an urgency for Bitcoin. And the people who had Bitcoin survived. And this is playing out globally. Here in the United States, there's less urgency because we are the empire. We are the world reserve currency for the moment, but that'll be changing very quickly. The number of people joining BRICS is vastly faster than the number of people who want to join NATO. So we're entering into a BRICS versus NATO global bifurcated financial world, and the global south is skewing toward perfect money, that is Bitcoin. And we see that in El Salvador, and that's permeating in the region. So the Central American region will be hyper-Bitcoinized. And then, of course, Africa is going the way of Bitcoin for the same reason, because they've been left out of the 20th century telecommunications revolution that occurred, but they're going to leapfrog into the 21st century revolution with Bitcoin. And so the US is probably, and the UK are probably, as to use an inelegant term that one who's into the farming industry might know, sucking hind tit.
But I think it's also important to note, as I said, like El Salvador has the first mover advantage. We have the best and the brightest coming there. We have the best Bitcoin companies there. So you know, something like 80% of all volume every day is that trading pair of Bitcoin and Tether, right? Tether, US dollar and Bitcoin. So that's it. We have the market. El Salvador is the market. The rest of the world is going to have to fight over, they're going to start to fight over that 20% of the shitcoin. They're going to look for the best shitcoiners in the glue factory, right? So that's what they have to fight over, and because they're not getting our people. The best and the brightest are going to be in El Salvador. That's where they're setting up their base. So the rest, they're going to try to, they're either going to have to, because it's hard to do it. It's not like, you know, President Bukele is cool, right? And he's popular and he's charismatic and he makes it look easy, but it's not easy. It's hard. Bitcoin is hard and it's hard work. And you're seeing the results today as all these companies like the likes of Jack Mallers and Fold are coming to El Salvador. But it took a lot of work to get to that point. So these other nations are 2 years behind us. And I don't think they understand how much hard work it is because he makes it look easy. Bitcoin makes it look easy, and that's why there's 25,000 shitcoins, because they think it's just easy. You just invent a blockchain, cryptography, like you use the same words, and that's the magic. It's hard work. No, it's not just magic.
No, these two do a tremendous amount of work behind the scene that isn't seen on a Twitter feed, that isn't seen on you know, the internet, and that, you know, should be commended.
Well, it takes character too, and that building your character is hard work. And he has character and morals and principles, and that's hard work. It's not easy.
But what happens when the next country adopts a Bitcoin standard with a charismatic leader, with, you know, who's laser-eyed and orange-pilled and is ready to adopt a Bitcoin standard, is ready to super hyper Bitcoinize? Will you support this country even though it wasn't first?
Yeah. We'd welcome some, but I just don't have much faith that they're going to be able to compete. You know, we're the kings of this new super hyper Bitcoinized world.
Well, the template that's being established in El Salvador is one that can be copied by other countries. The playbook essentially is making Bitcoin legal tender. Then securities laws were introduced that would support Bitcoin as money, and everything else would be considered a security. So here in the United States, this is still a vague and gray area that's battling every day with the SEC and Gary Gensler. But in El Salvador, we've already made it clear that only Bitcoin is money and everything else is a security, right? So then there's a new regulatory commission to help enforce those laws. There's the Bitcoin office, which is a gateway into Bitcoin, as well as the Association of Bitcoin, which allows for Bitcoin companies to make their way into El Salvador. So there's institutionally and structurally, there's now a playbook, and there's now things that you can do to mimic what's happening in El Salvador, and you too can have an economy that's growing strongly. Tourism is booming. And it's going to be probably the fastest growing economy in the world at this time next year.
Yeah, and I mean that it's also in the spirit of Bitcoin. You know, the fact this playbook is, you know, Tonga's looking at it, Fiji's looking at it, lots of, you know, small nations that are perhaps forgotten by the fiat system we live in are looking at this and thinking, you know, we can do it too.
Well, the African nation of CAR, right?
Central African Republic,
they decided to make Bitcoin legal tender. The shitcoiners flew in like locusts. And within 2 weeks, they completely fucked them over, and they went from being the third poorest country in the world to being the absolute poorest country in the world, thanks to shitcoins. So if you let shitcoins in, prepare for a lot of pain and misery.
It is known. Okay. What about on a personal level? You've been...
I personally hate shitcoins. I personally...
that was my attempt at a segue, but you know, I'll try to segue a different way. You've been banging the...
Banging who? Have I been, what? This has taken a very odd turn. They said you knew you were good at
this. It's the OnlyFans version of this interview. Wow.
I'm getting all hot and sweaty, buddy. Let's do it. It's in my legs. Woo! I went very conservative with my shorts today.
We're not going to do what we discussed earlier.
You can't actually see my testicles. So.
Okay. Got to be very careful with my choice of words here. Now, I'll just say it very quickly. So the fact that you've been banging the sound money drum for coming on to 40 years, Bitcoin came on the scene and you realize this is it. This gets us to a sound money standard. You devoted your careers to this. Does it not get tiring? Do you not think one day I want to retire from super hyper Bitcoinization? Will you be doing this until
no,
you
we have the volcano bond. It's just happening. So we're like, this is the big announcement coming. It's not actually a bond, it's equity. So we're moving forward on that. And that's actually, we're beginning the energy infrastructure project and the Bitcoin mining in El Salvador. So we're way ahead of everybody. We're going to be, basically, we're going to be in the top 10 most, most powerful Bitcoin mining operation in the world within about 9 months, I've been told, by our guy out there, Jose, who's the one.
No, this is the fun part.
Yeah.
We put in all the work, and now this is the fun part, to really enjoy the fruits of the labor. So we've been barns filling the world for, since 2011, and El Salvador, Tour de Meester, who was up here before, he was on Keiser report in 2014, and we were speculating what country would become the first to make Bitcoin legal tender. We said it would be a small country, a nimble country, a country that seeks economic freedom.
Economic liberty would be their policy.
Would be their policy.
And that's actually President Bukele's stated policy. That's what he calls it, economic liberty. So
that was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So now El Salvador was the first, and so we moved there. And so now we helped in 2022 establish the framework for all of these things to happen. And now in 2023, it's starting to get fun. So Fold is opening an office. You saw Jack Mallers is moving the headquarters of Strike to El Salvador. And my understanding is many more are coming. And,
more are coming. We have the best Bitcoiners there. We have the best leader. We have the best legs in Bitcoin in El Salvador, and we have volcano mining happening. So everybody's going to be able to.
Yeah, we're going to be in the top 10 biggest miner of Bitcoin within, as Stacy indicated, within 9 months.
Yeah,
we're going to be in the top 10.
It certainly looks like you're now in the fun stage of your careers, and I'm glad to see that.
I know you're coming back.
Yes, El Salvador. I'll be there in November. Yep.
November is an entire month of Bitcoin in El Salvador.
There's 10 seconds left to ask a final question. We've had Bitcoinization, we've had hyper-Bitcoinization, we've had super hyper-Bitcoinization. What's next?
Ooh, max Bitcoinization.
No, it's the global.
I teed you up.
It's the global Bitcoin orgasm.
Oh my God.
We all cash together in one glorious block.
And with.
You see, the mommy Bitcoin meets the daddy Bitcoin, and they hash. And then there comes baby Bitcoin. That's how mining works.
And with that climactic bombshell, that concludes the panel. Thank you so much, Stacey, Herbert, Max Keiser. Round of applause.
Please enjoy a break for lunch. The program will resume in a...
Bitcoiners, welcome back to Bitcoin 2023. This is the Bitcoin Magazine Live Desk, sponsored by Marathon. I'm joined once again by my esteemed co-panelists, Neil Jacobs at the end, Q Gaimi, Jessica HODLer. So, is HODLing Bitcoin using Bitcoin? Q, I'll go to you.
Look, HODLing Bitcoin is the equivalent of using it as a store of value. That is the first step of being a money. Next is medium of exchange, and then finally unit of account. Say what you want. HODLing is the first step. We need to get to medium of exchange. We need to start using it, but by all means, HODL on.
Jess, to you, is HODLing Bitcoin using Bitcoin?
Yes, absolutely. Bitcoin is the first time where we've actually been able to see regular people, all types of people, be able to build generational wealth. So you're able to stack sats and continue to save.
Definitely. Our panelists were talking about super hyper Bitcoinization. What education is necessary in order for us to get there? Neil, I'll throw it to you.
What we're doing right here. Educating the masses, advocating for Bitcoin, spreading the word. That's really all you could do, right? And luckily, we have a lot of committed Bitcoiners, not only just here at the conference, but at state and federal levels, trying to convince politicians and governments. So things are really going in the right direction. I'm super positive.
Jess, I'll go to you. What education do you think is necessary to bridge the gap from where we are now to where we want to go?
Yeah, like Neil said, communication. I mean, at what other point in history have we had vast amount of information at our fingertips? You can learn everything there is to learn about Bitcoin at anywhere in the world. So, yeah.
Definitely. Q, can the world be hyper-Bitcoinized if crypto still exists, dare I say it.
So I will say this. Nothing can stop Bitcoin. Just ask China how that mining ban is going for them over there. However, I do believe that crypto will slow down the adoption of Bitcoin, but it will never go away, unfortunately. Scammers will always exist, whether it's in this space or in various other spaces. So we will continue to see these crypto scams pop up, and it will diminish the reputation of Bitcoin for a time until Bitcoin truly establishes itself as the alpha in this space.
Neil, I'm going to toss it to you. Do you think crypto will still be around by the time we get to hyper-Bitcoinization?
Yeah, so I just look at crypto as gambling tokens, right? And gambling casinos exist today, and they're going to exist in the future. So I don't really seeing it have a long-term effect on Bitcoin in the short term. It's definitely a lot of noise, which hurts a lot of people from understanding Bitcoin. But in the long term, it's not going to matter whether they're around or not. So yeah, they'll be around, but who cares?
Definitely. We're going to talk about strengthening networks. So, no, Jess, you were going to give a suggestion to El Salvador and President Bukele about a CBI program. How would that strengthen the Bitcoin network, and what was your suggestion to him?
Yeah, absolutely. So Plan B would love to add El Salvador as a jurisdiction. Bitcoiners are super interested in getting citizenship, not residency, in El Salvador via a Bitcoin donation to the government. So it would be a huge influx of capital to the country, and if they want to take advantage of that, they'd be smart to create a program.
Definitely. That would decentralize the risk maybe that you see in the United States or in Europe or in other places. That would definitely help assist that.
Oh, absolutely. A Plan B passport is the perfect hedge against your government and any potential authoritarian government coming after you.
Q, final words, 20 seconds.
Look, this has been an incredible conference. You guys have hit it out of the park. It's been a wonderful time. I hope everyone who's at home watching this is enjoying this, learning a lot of information. For those who are watching who are not hardcore Bitcoiners who are curious, I hope you are finding the information you need to then go off and continue to do the work. That's all this is. Continue to do the work, continue learning.
Definitely. Stick with us. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to be joined by another panelist in 5 minutes. So remember to smash the like button and hit subscribe. See you soon.